Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. It's Season 3. Come and join the Boob Talk family as we discuss the issues breast cancer and other cancer survivors face. Come along on our journey. We are survivors. Welcome to Boob Talk. I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers. Thank you for joining me this evening. Tonight is All Things COVID Part 2. It's time for Boob Talk Health Update with information and news you can use. Our guest tonight is our special return guest and our resident clinical pharmacist, Marilena Gattani. Marilena, welcome back to Boob Talk.
Thank you, Cynthia, for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here.
So glad you could join us, and thank you for coming back to discuss COVID updates and news. And to start the show, I just wanted to discuss the latest breaking news that the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, he announced a plan for the next phase of the pandemic in California, which basically is learning to live with the virus, that there is basically no end date. And they are formulating a plan called SMARTER, SMARTER, and the acronyms, they stand for shots, mask, awareness, readiness, testing, education, and RX, other words, prescriptions. So, Marilena,
yes.
What are your thoughts about the governor and his belief that, hey, this is not going to end, we're just going to have to live with it?
Well, I thought we were going to be at this point July last year. If we wouldn't have Delta, we probably would, and if we wouldn't have more vaccinated people, we would probably be at that point then. Unfortunately, vaccination wasn't as massive as we expected or planned. And, of course, Delta came to change the rules of the game because Delta was way more contagious and also caused even worse disease than the previous variants. So what this means is that we are at a point that we heard a lot about in 2020, which was community immunity or herd immunity, or we're ready to confront this. Basically what it means is that the addition between the people that have gotten the disease and generated immunity because of that, plus the people that have been vaccinated, are plenty enough. So the rest of them that haven't had the disease nor been vaccinated are a very, very small percentage, and we could take that risk as a public health point of view, which is basically what the state of California is doing. And let me tell you this, California is not the only state that is doing this. Also not the U.S. is not the only country. There are several countries that are starting with this, but in my opinion, they are in way better shape than we are. Like Israel, they have 92% of their population vaccinated over 12 years of age, or Australia, that they have 93% of their population over 12 years of age. So they are in a way better situation than we are. That means that only 7 or 8% of their population is not vaccinated, probably because they can't due to diseases or allergies. So that means that these very few people are the ones that should be taking medications in the case that they do get the disease. So the chances that we can control it and to make it endemic, which means, we discussed this the last time, that it becomes, it forms part of our life, it becomes part of our regular life like the flu is. It's not something that we have to shy or hide away from. So, but it wouldn't do that much to us because we're either vaccinated or vaccinated and got the disease, which is the maximum protection that we may have. So I understand their point. I don't think the U.S. is ready for that, though.
Okay. Do we know what percentage of the United States has been vaccinated?
Fully vaccinated with 2 vaccines is close to 65%.
Oh, that's really low.
Yeah. It is. If we talk about Arizona, we have 49.
Oh,
yes,
goodness.
That's my point. Arizona has 49% of the population with 2 doses. We're not even counting 3 doses. So that means that basically half of the people in the state have been vaccinated, and let's say that 20% of the rest of that 50 have already gotten the disease. So that gets us to about 70% of the population that are, between quotations, protected. We still have a 30% of the population that if we release everything and mask distancing and pushing for vaccination, which honestly is basically what is happening here in Arizona, then we're going to have more disease like we have. So the problem is when another variant surges, and I am afraid that we're going to have one very soon.
Oh,
nothing is said yet. It's not official. But yeah, because we discussed this. I think it was in the second time that we talked. Is the only thing that we need for another variant is multiplication of the virus. You know how many times that virus multiplied during Omicron? It was tremendous. It haven't happened before, so I'm pretty sure it's cooking somewhere, another variant. And the problem is we don't know if it's going to be super mild or if it's going to be really bad because we don't have a magic ball. We don't. That's why I think it's too soon, in my opinion.
I mean, that would make sense. Yeah, I think that percentage you quoted is very low. I know here in New York State, where I am, we have had a mask mandate, and the governor just lifted that. So we don't have to, in public places wear a mask anymore. But just still, me, for my own protection, I'm still wearing a mask when I'm out in public. So just to be on the safe side.
And that's what I think is going to be the key. I don't care what my governor says. I know what I need to do to protect myself. If I have an immune disease, if I'm going through chemotherapy and I know I need to protect myself, if I go to places where there's not enough ventilation, where I don't know if people there might have the virus and never been vaccinated, which means that they will be more prone to disperse the disease, then I will be wearing a really tight, maybe even 2-layer mask. But it would depend on everybody, and it's your own safety. So it shouldn't depend on the government for you to take care of yourself. That's the way that I see it.
Exactly. And I just saw that, I guess as of a few days ago, New York State was 75% vaccinated. So that's a little bit better. So what are your thoughts then about the governor lifting the mask mandates with the 75% vaccinated? Is that a good number, or should we
be
extra cautious?
That's a little bit better. Well, that's a little bit better because if we take in consideration that maybe 20%, 15% of the remaining that have not been vaccinated already got the disease and have some kind of immunity, that gets you to, let's say, 90%. That is a good number. That is a much better number, let's just say, than Arizona, for example. Now, would that mean that nobody else is going to get in the hospital because of COVID, or does that mean that nobody else will die? That is definitely a no. Of course they will, because mostly the ones that are not vaccinated, because based on Omicron statistics, just to be conservative, 90% of people that ended up in the hospital with Omicron were non-vaccinated, or those that got just one dose. So I think that and I've said it since the beginning, I'm nobody to tell you what to do, but my recommendation is get vaccinated, keep your distance, wear your mask where you are in public places where you cannot control who is there and in which conditions they are, and keep your distances. And but sadly, over 70% of the people that got the disease got it at home. Because
now, how does that happen?
Your daughter, your husband. Well, because either you, your husband, your daughter, your son didn't take the precautions that they should have, so they brought it home. And at home, you are at your refuge. You think you're in your bubble, so you're not using masks nor keeping distances, and you're, living your life at home where it's supposed to be safe. But once one of them broke the bubble rules, then everybody else got it. That's why. That's sad, but that's exactly how most of the people that got it, even elderly, and that's the most scary part because they're the ones that are more risk.
Yes, yes, that is true. Now, I know you just were talking about variants, and you think that another one might be on the horizon. So let's just dive
Yes,
into
ma'am.
that and talk about what's going on with the variants out there. Is there something else out there, something on the works? Just talk about that, Marilena.
No, there's nothing on the works, and I know nobody have mentioned anything yet. And I want to be positive and think maybe it's not going to happen, but that is a maybe. And being knowledgeable of what I know, I know that something is going to happen very soon. So we did get Omicron officially as a variant on November the 26th, 2021. That started in South Africa and then started spreading to Europe, and then we got it here. The timing is about 2 weeks from when we started in Africa, it went to Europe. And after 2 weeks, around 2 weeks after that, we got it here in the U.S. And about 3 weeks or so, it went to Latin America. And I know that for a fact because, well, I do a lot of rooms in Clubhouse where I talk mostly to Spanish-speaking people, and most of them are in Latin America. So the numbers are matching. So about, I would say 3 weeks, a sister of Omicron developed. A sister of Omicron is the same variant with a little changes, but it keeps being the same Omicron. It's not a new variant. It's like mom Omicron had 2 kids and they're 2 sisters. It's the same. It's still from mom Omicron, not like Delta that it was completely different. Now, the differences between the younger sister and the older sister of Omicron, which is BA1 and BA2, is that BA2, which is the youngest sister, is even more contagious, which I don't even know what patterns to keep track of because listen, when we got the first one that came from China, it was the most contagious thing ever. Then we got Alpha, and it was 20% more contagious. Then we got Delta, that was 40% more contagious than Alpha. And then we got Omicron, that was 8 times more contagious than Delta. I don't know what numbers are we going to be thinking about now with Delta BA2, because it's really, really complicated to kind of put it together in your mind to imagine what we're talking about. But it is more contagious. By now, based on the time that it developed in Europe, by now we should be having a little pick of more cases and more hospitalizations in the next 4 or 6 weeks due to this new sister of the variant. And the problem is, and this is something that I want to make sure everybody understands, because I don't want people to be fooled by the official numbers that we have by the CDC or the Johns Hopkins Institute, which is Johns Hopkins University that is tracking COVID. This is what is happening, Cynthia. And because I know that your listeners want me to speak as clear as if they were my sisters, I'm going to do exactly that. So about 3 weeks ago, the president decided to give everybody rapid tests for them to test at home. Remember that? So you can order them and they were free.
Which I still never got.
So I got mine after 2 weeks, 2 days ago. And I'm like, good thing I didn't need it, but thank you. That was funny because if I really needed it by now, I wouldn't. But anyways, I just wanted to have it to see what it is so I can talk to people about it and all that. Thankfully, I have not needed it, so that's good. Well, this is what it is. When you have a test that tells you if you are positive at home, you don't need to go anywhere. You basically get at home. You know that you need to isolate. You need to take care. You need to hydrate. You need to rest. You need food and wait until this passes, unless it goes really bad, which hopefully is not going to happen to you, and then you will go to the hospital. So this is what is happening because people are getting tests at home, and also they're being distributed in different states for the government of the states to give it to the people that live in that state. There is no official testing as much as it was before because people are getting them at home, but they're not being reported to the authorities if they're positive.
Ah, right.
So if you see the statistics, they're going the cases of positive people with positive COVID. Okay, they're going down, and it looks beautiful. And it's like, oh, my God, thank goodness the cases are going down. But hospitalizations are going up. How do you explain that? The explanation is that now the testing that we're doing, it's staying at home, and it's not being reported to the authorities, so they don't have that many cases. Granted, a lot of people are getting to the hospital to get tested, or they're going to their doctor to get tested. Those are the ones that are reported, because it is a mandate that anybody that works in healthcare and has a positive COVID-19 result, they must report it to their county. And the county reports it to the state and the public health department. And then the state public health department reported to National Public Health Department, and then they reported to the NIH, and then the NIH reported to the CDC. And that's what we see as official numbers. It makes sense that the numbers are going down in cases, because I'm asking you, whoever is listening to this, lady, sir, if you get a test at home and you test yourself, and if you get positive, are you going to be thinking, oh, my God, I need to notify the authorities that I'm positive?
No.
It's not going to happen, my dear.
No.
It's not going to happen. You're going to be worried like, oh, my God, I need to isolate. I need to call this person. I need to call that other person that was with me. I need to call work. Oh, my goodness, I need to get groceries. How am I going to do this? The last thing that you're thinking is to report it. That is precisely what is happening. So I'm saying this not to talk bad about the government, because I think it was a good thing, because before we couldn't find tests, or we needed to get out of home and maybe spreading more the disease. That's a problem. What I'm saying is that don't be fooled by the numbers that we have now in cases, mostly when hospitalizations are still increasing, because these people that are getting hospitalized are coming from somewhere that they were positive a few weeks ago. Not everybody gets hospitalized the same day that they got positive. And sometimes 3 days pass, sometimes 5 days pass, sometimes a week and a half passes, depending on how many comorbidities you might have. If you have diabetes, if you have heart conditions, if you have, nervous system conditions, obesity, that is the other big one. So then when all those get complicated is when people get in the hospital. So hospitalizations go up about 2 weeks in average after the positive cases. So if we see a decline of cases today, in 2 weeks we should be a decline of hospitalization. That is not happening. It's quite the opposite. And that's what I wanted to make people aware of. So you don't think that we have less cases that you can let go. Even if your state, your governor is saying that you should, because we are not there yet. Does that make sense, Cynthia?
Yes, it does. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, because I would have never even thought about that. You're right. If you're getting a test at home, you're not thinking about reporting it. And I even know for some places, as far as your employer, in the beginning of the pandemic, it was required, hey, if you have tested positive, you need to let your employer know. And I know now they have slacked on requiring you to let your employer know. So that does make perfect sense that, hey, these numbers could be deceiving. Don't let your guard down. And I wanted to just ask you then, should people still be getting vaccinated?
Absolutely, yes, 150,000 million%. That's not a number, right? I just made it up. Sorry. Yes, we should. We should for a lot of reasons, Cynthia. I just said at the beginning that over 90% of people that are that went to the hospital with COVID were non-vaccinated or had just one dose. So that is a good chunk of people that if they would have been vaccinated, they would not be hospitalized, right? So if you don't want to take the risk to have a disease, a COVID case that is bad enough that it's going to take you to the hospital, please get vaccinated. So I will want to say this one more time, even though I say it every time that I come here to your show, which I'm very grateful that you allow me to do this, because my intention is to inform the community so you guys make your own decisions, but you make your decisions based on information that you can trust, that is actually something that you can go check online and verify that what I'm saying is exactly the truth. Just go to the CDC or go to Johns Hopkins COVID tracking website, and you would see that information that exactly matches what I'm telling you. But what I wanted to say is that, Cynthia, once you get vaccinated, and you get your 2 doses or 3 doses now, which, by the way, I have news that I didn't learn until yesterday. I don't know if you want me to talk about it, but if you get 2 or 3 doses and 14 days passes after your last dose, you are protected in about 70 to 80% of not getting severe enough disease that you will end up in the hospital, which could lead to death. The vaccination does not mean that you're going to have a Post-it in your forehead that says, virus, don't come in because I got vaccinated. That is not what it means. What it means, as any vaccine, Cynthia, that we have gotten since we were babies, they are in our bodies to protect us not to get really sick and not to die because of this disease. It's not preventing the virus to come into your body. That is our job. Your job as an individual is to prevent the virus to come into your body and then not get the infection. If you fail at your job, which could happen, right, then your immune system that has been tipped off by the vaccine is ready to confront this enemy and attack it and destroy it. But it should be when you fail at your job that is to protect you. So just to make it a little bit more easy to understand, the vaccine does not make you a superhero. You do not have superpowers against COVID if you got vaccinated. That is not what the vaccines are for. I hope that was clear, Cynthia.
Yes. Yes, it was very clear. And now, speaking of vaccines, I learned about a recent study from the Oregon Health and Science University talking about how the vaccine has been affecting women's menstrual cycles. So I wanted to talk about that today, too. There's just so much that's always going on with COVID and the vaccines. So apparently the vaccine is affecting this. Yes.
Yes, I need to say this. I hope that one day we talk again and it's not about COVID because I am kind of sick of it too. So it's not just you guys. Me too. Me too. So let's talk about this topic specific because I know most of your listeners are females and we want to know. So this is what happened. This study, people were complaining that they had variances. I mean, something was different with their menstrual cycle, and they wanted to find out what was going on because it was reported to their doctors. So they conducted this study. What they did is that they got an app that people that are trying to get pregnant are using, and they got the data from it. So they evaluated people that had periods of 28 days, people of 30 days cycles, the whole cycle was 28 or 30 days, and then they approached them and asked if they were vaccinated. So they compare these numbers, the ones that were vaccinated and the ones that were not. So we got 2,400 people that were vaccinated, and we got 1,556 people that were not. So when they did compare after 3 months and even 6 months, how their period and the cycle changed, what they found out is that after the first dose with either Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson, they did get a longer cycle, about 0.7 days, not even 1 day. And we're talking about the cycle. We're not talking about the menses. So if they say that you would get your period every 28 days before you got vaccinated, these people that had the issue with it got their period at the day 29th, not the 28th. Does that make sense? But if they were bleeding 3 days or 5 days, it was exactly the same. That did not change.
Okay.
Now, when they compare, of course, people that were not vaccinated, they did not have any changes. So that was normal. They were like comparison just to see if it was the people in this population or if it was actually the ones vaccinated. When they got the second dose and they did the same review, they found out that the same thing happened, but a little bit higher. It was 0.9 days longer cycles, which means that if you were having periods of 28 days before, they were 29 days after. but not the bleeding time, not the menses time. That did not change. So because it was just 1 day, at the most 0.9 days, the main complaint that these people had, which was, I'm trying to have a baby. This vaccine is changing my period, my cycle. It's going to change all the process that I'm going through to get pregnant. The answer is no, it was less than a day. It's not affecting you for that. So most of the complaints was, if it's changing the cycle, it's changing your fertility, but that is not the case, not what this study showed. And the other thing is that this came up, that was the first, after the first dose and the second dose, and they monitor them for 6 months after. And after the third period, the difference, it kept decreasing in 0.3 days at the time, every month. So it ended up that by the third month after their period, it was normal again. It was, again, 28 days. One thing I want to say about this study is that 350 people, let's just round it to that number, got 2 doses in the same cycle because it was 28 days. Mm-hmm. So they got it, let's say, on day 1 of their cycle, and the second dose was 21 days later. So they got it before they got their menses. These people got an increase of 2 days of their cycle.
Okay.
2.5 days after the second dose, which was the longest, but then progressively after the second and third day, the second and the third month, it decreases to the point that was normal again. So the reason is still not known. They are investigating that. They're trying to find out the why, but it was a very, very small percentage of people, and it was almost not that important. When you have a longer period, you barely will notice it, and that is for people that are not on the pill. Because if you are on the pill, the hormones control your cycle. It's not your body. So if they were on the pill, which is not the case, because again, this is only the data for people that were trying to get pregnant. Okay, so if you guys are on the pill, you wouldn't have any difference on your cycles or periods.
Okay. I'm just also curious now.
Fluff than anything.
Okay. I'm just also curious now. This is just making me think of when the vaccine first came out, how it was affecting the mammogram readings. So I'm just wondering what is going on with this vaccine that it seems to be, at least in my opinion, affecting females in some type of way, because I haven't really heard anything about it affecting males. Have you? Maybe I'm mistaken, but it just seems odd to me that it just seems to be affecting female and hormones. I don't know. What's going on?
It's speaking on us. No, actually, it is also, the problem that we had with mammograms, that we talk about it, I think the first or second time that I came to your show, basically what it is that you get the vaccine in that arm, and the ganglia that you have under your arm, in your armpit, it gets a little swollen. And it gets swollen because that means that your immune system is working really good. That's where the generals and colonels of your army, that is the immune system that is protecting you, are working to generate immunity. So the people that got a mammogram within 2 months after getting the vaccine, they noticed that they had those ganglia a little bit bigger. And that is, if it's in one side only, it is suspicious of cancer, breast cancer mainly. Yeah. So the thing is that in females it's detected, Cynthia, because we do get tested. Boys don't. Guys don't get exams. They don't know. They might have it, but we have no way to prove it or to get it in numbers because they don't get tested. They just don't. So the way that we need to see it is, first of all, our immune system is working great. We shouldn't be afraid of that. On the contrary, we should be super happy that our immune system is good. And secondly, I should be very proud of us females getting our mammograms where we need to have them. So rather than be seen as a negative thing of the mammogram results, is all good news. About the period, it's just 1 day, maybe 2 at the most. They have not found out why. The psyche part of it might be a problem, but it's not a high incidence. It's not that everybody that gets vaccinated gets these menstrual variations. It's not like that. It's just a small percentage. So is very it's not a big deal. I don't think it is. And if it was everybody, if it was a lot, if it was to the point that public health should be involved, the vaccine would be out of the picture. Definitely.
Okay. That's good. So if anybody noticed any irregularities, it's nothing to really panic about.
No, it would go away within 2 or 3 months. And if you get the ganglia inflamed, it would probably last the same length of time. But instead of being afraid, to be happy, your immune system is working really well.
Okay. Now, earlier you mentioned, people should still be actively trying to get the vaccine. Now, what about those that had the vaccine, got the booster? I know for me, it'll be actually a year in March from me initially getting the first shot. So is there any indication, are we going to need another shot going for this year? I mean, is anyone saying anything about that?
Well, actually on the 17th of February, 2 days ago, the CDC changed a little bit their recommendations in terms of vaccination. And this is what it is. Instead of being 2 doses of Pfizer and Moderna and then a booster 6 months later, they are including what we call the booster as the series, the primary series. So it is necessary for everybody to get the 3rd dose. It's not an option anymore. So what it is exactly like the hepatitis B series of vaccination. You get one the first day, the second one 1 month later, and then 6 months later you get the 3rd shot for hepatitis B. That's how it's been forever. Now for COVID, the way that it is at this point, that we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but as it is at this point by the CDC of the center, that is the Center of Control and Prevention of Diseases of the U.S., they decided that it's going to be the primary series is going to be 3 doses, one day one. The second one, depending of the vaccine, it will be 21 days for Pfizer, 28 days for Moderna, or 2 months for Janssen. And then a 3rd dose that would be for Pfizer and Moderna 5 months later. Before it was 6 months, but they shorted down to 5 months because at the mark of 5 months is when you start seeing that it declines some of the protection against getting symptoms, not against getting you out of the hospital or being in the ICU or dying. That coverage is still really, really good. What is decreasing is the fact that you will have symptoms. So that means that you can be more transmissible. So what they're trying to do is to shorten the time to avoid that so you will not transmit it to others. Now, another dose for regular people like you and me, that is not being said. There's nothing about that. Now, because of your listeners, I keep thinking about a healthcare provider. We call it population. So the people that listen to your show, the listeners of your show, some of them are going through cancer and some of them are going through chemotherapy. There is a possibility that the treatment that you're using, if you're getting chemotherapy, are getting you moderate to severely immunosuppressed. Only you and your physician knows. So if that is the case, the rules have changed for you. And there is extra dose that is recommended. And we actually have another medication available that is called Evusheld that is actually available for people that the vaccines are truly not helping. This is another way to boost their immunity, but that is only for those that have moderate to severe immunosuppression. And if that is your case, because I don't want to confuse everybody, and hopefully it's just going to be a very few of you, you can go to the CDC new guidelines for immunosuppressed, and they have a long list of stuff, and it's very clear, very self-explanatory, and I can give you the link if you want to. You can find me on Facebook, and I can give you the information. The important thing is that now the full primary series is about 3 doses, one day one. The second one is going to be whatever the date is, the 21st day or the 28th day for Pfizer and Moderna respectively, or 2 months later for Janssen, and then the next one is going to be 5 months later for Pfizer and Moderna. Johnson still gets 2 doses only. So that is what we have for now. And again, if you are moderate to severely immunosuppressed, then visit the CDC website, cdc.gov, and type in the search bar immunosuppressed, severe immunosuppressed, and then they will get it. I believe that your physician should have the information too, but if you need my help, I'll be happy to do so.
Okay, and I know a few cancer survivors that have gotten COVID. You know, thank God they pulled through, but they said they were severely sick. So, and I, believe it wasn't even a year within their treatment. So, like you said, discuss this with your physician, but it is recommended that they get the vaccine.
One thing that people that have immunosuppression, they think that because of other vaccines, prior vaccines, they were told don't get vaccinated. And that was because the vaccines prior to COVID vaccines, they were made from viruses that were attenuated, which means that they're kind of sleeping, that they cannot reproduce to the virus in your body, but they're parts of the virus. So because of the possibility that attenuation of the virus would fail, then it would develop the virus in your body, and being immunosuppressed, it would cause a really bad. That's why vaccines were not recommended before. Now, we do have Pfizer and Moderna vaccines that do not have any part of the virus. The vaccine was made with a synthetic copy. It's like a 3D copy of what the virus looks, and that's what they developed for the vaccine. So it's actually not the virus, and it cannot get you sick. That's why immunosuppressed people, even severely immunosuppressed people, can take these vaccines, because there is no chance that you can get the disease from the vaccine. So you don't need to be afraid. On the contrary, you should get vaccinated, because your poor immune system is already down, it's already beaten down, it's already tired, it's already hungry and skinny. The last thing that this immune system needs is a mean virus that is going to come bother them, because they will not be able to respond. But if you get the vaccine and the immune system gets a little bit fortified, or at least knows how to identify the virus and start working super fast, you will have better chances of not developing a moderate to severe disease or even get to the hospital.
Okay. So I just wanted to then just revisit, as far as you know right now, for the majority of us, if we're not undergoing treatment of any kind, or if we're not immunocompromised, we don't need a 4th shot right now. If we've already had 3.
No, that's not in discussion yet.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
For
Great.
now. And I want to say that because
tomorrow
there's
going to be a breaking news.
Yeah. I can't assure anything. Yes,
as of
it is for now, and
we're good.
Yeah, and as soon as we get more information and something comes up, I will let you know, and we can have another conversation. But as it is today, don't panic, don't worry about that unless you are severely immunosuppressed. That is another story.
Okay, great. So lastly, Marilena, I just want to ask you, in your opinion, is this pandemic going to end, or is this just going to be an endemic like we were talking about earlier in last show, where this is it, we're just going to have to live with it, and it's just up to us to protect ourselves and continue life?
Well, as I said the last time that I was in your show, Cynthia, I am very positive that the pandemic is going to end this year. As a pandemic, it's going to become endemic for several reasons. Number one, a lot of people have gotten the disease. I mean, if you don't know somebody that got Omicron, you don't have anybody in your life, because everywhere somebody got it. Okay, so that means that a lot of these people got immunity. That is a good thing, whether they were vaccinated or not. Omicron kind of protected a lot of people with the immunity that you develop by getting the disease. That's one thing. Also, we have gotten hundreds of millions of people vaccinated in the whole planet. So that means that they do have an extra layer of protection, whether they had the disease or not, before they got vaccinated or after. So that is really good, because they're being added to the people that are protected pile, right? And then we have left the people that are not vaccinated and have never had the disease. This number of people, unfortunately, is getting smaller and smaller. I'm calling I'm calling them unicorns because they haven't gotten the disease. So, and if they have not been vaccinated, then they are very, very few millions, but still fewer versus the ones that are vaccinated. So that's what we call, as I was saying earlier, herd immunity or community immunity. That's very good. For these people that are not vaccinated and have never had the disease, we do have more and more medications. Right now we have medications that are prophylactic that we're using for people that are moderate to severely immunosuppressed. That's one drug. We do have the IV drugs, the ones that they put in your vein when you get hospitalized, for people that have the disease and need that help. They have worked really well with Omicron, and people have gotten out of the hospital less than 7 days after being hospitalized. That is very good. Most of these people have not been vaccinated, so this medication is working. On top of that, we now have the oral medications that we were talking about the last time. That is two medications. One is molnupiravir, made by Pfizer, and the other one is, I forgot the name right now, it's made by Pfizer, but no, molnupiravir is made by Merck, and the other one, Paxlovid is the name of it. Paxlovid is made by Pfizer. Those are oral medication. That means that it's a pill that you take. And if you get diagnosed positive, they can give you the medication and you can take it at home. And that is going to prevent the virus from reproducing in your body, which means that you're going to have less disease. So between all of these tools and weapons that we have against this horrible enemy that is COVID, we are in a very good shape to become endemic and to have a good grip of what is going on health-wise. The problem will be those that are not vaccinated that are more risk, those that have comorbidities, which number one is obesity, then is cardiac issues, problems with your heart, not hypertension, problems with your heart, that your heart has you have a valve in your heart, or you have a heart that is not working properly, not hypertension, because that is another story and it's not part of the reasons why you get worse with COVID. And then if you have kidney issues, if you have liver issues, if you have central nervous system issues, like if you have brain issues as well, you are more sensitive to have these diseases. So these are the people that are a higher risk, and these are the ones that are getting hospitalized faster, so we can give them medication faster and they will not develop COVID in a severe way that they could be at risk of not making it, dying from it. So I think that the tools that we have and the circumstances that we have at this point are leading us, by maybe mid-year, we would be at the point that we're endemic. I think we're very close.
That's wonderful news. Fingers crossed, prayers up. Let's hope this is coming to an end so we can try to get back to some sense of normalcy. Magdalena, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And listen, I am as sick of the disease as you are, so I'm hoping that this is it. Let's just cross our fingers and truly pray for it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Great, Magdalena. Thank you so much. And we hope you will come back if there's any further breaking news and updates, and also anything else that's going on that we need to be aware of, any new cancer drugs or medications out there. That if you have any information along those lines, you are always welcome to come share your wealth of information.
Absolutely. I will let you know, Cynthia. And whenever you need me, I'm here for you anytime. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay, dog. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. You have been listening to Boob Talk, and I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you to our special return guest, our resident clinical pharmacist, Magdalena Grattani, for continuing to share her knowledge with us about COVID-19, variants, and vaccines, so that we can continue to make informed decisions for ourselves and our families. As I always say, knowledge is power. Until next time, God bless. You have been listening to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. Follow us on all podcasting platforms and on Facebook at Boob Talk Podcast Group and Instagram at Cynthia L. Rogers, Boob Talk Podcast. Remember, never give up hope.